So, Michael, we're going to go into some pretty in-depth questions about business, entrepreneurship, et cetera, today. But if we can just start with Michael Birch, the person. Could you just shed some light on maybe some personal details? You know, where were you born? What's your passion? What's your interest outside of business?
I was born in Cambridge, brought up in Hertfordshire. I went to university at Imperial College in London, did a degree in physics, wasn't that good at it. Worked in insurance for about 10 years, which is always obviously a good springboard for entrepreneurship. So that was kind of a complete waste of 10 years, really. But it did make me hungry, and it kind of drove me to actually do something other than insurance. So maybe it was a good thing. I'm not sure I have any interest outside of internet businesses and children, really.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounded awful, didn't it? I have 3 children, so they take up a lot of time, and then when I'm not with the children, I'm generally working. But yeah, that's I don't sort of fly kites or do anything else.
What advice would you give to people that want to become world-class in whatever field they are doing, so sort of success characteristics of individuals?
I think arrogance and stupidity, probably. I think you have to be arrogant enough to believe you can do it and stupid enough to keep trying when you fail. We certainly didn't succeed. Everything we founded was with myself and my wife, so it's not just me by any means. Yeah. And it took us about 4 years of trying to start businesses before we had anything that you could count as a success, which was Birthday Alarm. Yeah. So we started in '99, and then 2003 we sold Ringo, and Birthday Alarm started becoming successful at the same time.
Yeah. So persistence is a characteristic that you have. Continuing. Imagine if you hadn't done, you did the first, second, third, but you'd stopped then, you wouldn't have done Birthday Alarm. And
yeah, I actually started out, I said I'd do, I convinced my wife it was a good idea to give up a well-paid job. I was earning about probably £100,000 a year at the time, which 10 years ago felt an awfully big amount of money. And she was also earning about the same amount. She had left work to have our first child, and I convinced her it was a really good idea for me to leave work as well and start this internet business. And I knew nothing about the internet. So I bought a book on HTML and started learning it. I thought that's all I need to know. If I can learn HTML, I can build websites. Obviously, that's not true. And I told her, if I haven't started making money after 3 months, I'll go get another job. And 3 years later, I still hadn't made a penny. So we'd had a number of conversations along that road of should I go and get another job? Yeah. And it really, we just sort of came down to the fact that if it really went belly up, either of us, we could both go and live at either of our parents, and they would look after us until we could find a job. So we sort of just decided we'd keep going until we literally can't afford to do it anymore. Interesting. Not sure that's a wise recommendation for people, but it worked finally for us. Yeah.
Well, Michael, when do you think people, entrepreneurs, should know when to quit? I mean, is there a point where, for example, if it was going on 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, I mean, is it?
I don't know. I mean, it's so dependent on the individuals, but yeah. We went into our first business knowing that I didn't really know much, but thinking I could do it. Yeah. And then the first we did 3 businesses that didn't work, and I left that first business thinking that, all right, I didn't know anything, but now I know everything I need to know. And went into the second business, and then left that second business realizing I actually knew nothing when I started that business, and then thinking I knew everything. So it's a little bit like waiting for a bus. You think you're there now. It was like, it was a bad idea to begin with, but now I've gone this far, I'll just keep on going. And so we kind of got to this position where we just weren't quitting.
Yeah, because you launched Lemon Link, Babysitting Circle, and Friendly Wills. So what would you say are some of the lessons that you actually did learn from those 3 ventures that you'd launched that you then took forward to?
We'd focus on one thing quite early on, which was viral marketing. So one thing that we realized we couldn't do was spend money on marketing. We didn't have a marketing budget. It was all we could do to continue our own cost of living, let alone to plow money into the business. So we focused on viral marketing, and viral marketing is quite scientific more than anything else. And from us coming from a science background, we kind of worked out how to analyze and measure viral growth, and there's quite a lot you can measure. And then we did a lot of experiments, 50-50 trials, and we iterated and experimented on that. So that's really the one thing that we focused on, and that's the one thing that we developed a lot of knowledge and skills in. And that's the one thing that ultimately allowed us to succeed. So from site to site, we just got a lot better at that. And then by the time we did Bebo, we launched it, taking everything we'd learned from the previous sites, and we hit 1 million members on day 9. So on the 9th day, we got 350,000 new members on that day alone. Now the problem then was no one ever came back. So out of the 1 million members, we had about 10 people come back. Right. So we'd kind of like over-perfected this one aspect of growth and completely ignored engagement or providing anything for them to ever do on the site. So then we actually just stopped doing viral marketing from then on. We've not stopped doing it, but we stopped focusing on it. Yeah. And we focused on how to get engagement up. Yeah. And then we eventually did that, and Bebo, when it was successful, had the highest engagement per user than any other social network, including MySpace and Facebook. In
terms of your career so far, is there anything you wish that you'd known at the beginning that you know now, that you could go back to a younger Michael Birch and say, give some advice to? You did very well, but I'm just wondering if there's anything.
No, I mean, it's hard to think of any one thing. I mean, it was kind of knowledge that was acquired over time. There wasn't one piece of magical advice that would have meant that we'd have succeeded early on. So I don't tend to regret anything that's gone in the past, even though in hindsight I know we could have done it better. Yeah. So I tend to try and just look forward on those things.
Yeah. Well, I guess as long as it works out in the end, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, clearly in hindsight I could have made it happen a lot more quickly. It took a lot of iterations and a lot of bad experiments to get to the point where we knew somewhat what we were doing.